Dark rides, coasters, and the almighty PeopleMover, Disney World has hands down some of the best theme park rides you could ask for, but not every ride is going to be super rad. In fact, you might absolutely hate some Disney World attractions, which sounds ridiculous, but after today's video, you're going to see why I'm making such a bold claim. Hey everybody, it's AJ for Disney Food Vlog. Now, Disney World is home to tons of state-of-the-art rides with thrills and stories and lots of catchy songs, sometimes even too catchy, looking at you, Small World. But not everyone is gonna love every Disney World ride. In fact, one person's go-to attraction could be another person's must-skip. So today we're gonna talk about why folks absolutely hate certain Disney World rides and what you can do to make sure the rides you prioritize during your next trip are gonna be the ones making your family say, let's go again. So you might be boarding the same Disney World ride, but that doesn't automatically mean you're all getting the same Disney World ride experience. Confused? Hollywood Studios has a lot of rides that'll help prove my point here. You see, depending on where you board an attraction, your ride can be very different from someone else riding at the same time. Take Rise of the Resistance, for instance. Ooh, that rhymed. For the trackless part, you're sorted into either the front first-order transport vehicle or the back first-order transport vehicle. You'll know right away which transport you're about to be on based on the color you're sorted into. If you're placed in blue or red, you'll go to the front transport. If you're placed into orange or white, you'll go to the back. So here's where things start to vary depending on if you're in the front or the back. Early in the ride, a probe droid emerges looking for the Resistance prisoners, aka you. The front car will see the probe droid up close, while the back car just sort of passes by it when the droid is lowered. This is a pretty significantly different experience depending on what car you're in, since the front gets you up close to the action and hits you with more of that shock factor. Then when you enter the AT-AT room, or the AT-AT room, however you want to say it, I've seen it both ways online, the front car goes through the AT-ATs and turns left, backing into the elevator with a view of Finn and his stormtrooper gear against a wall. After rising up, the front car will come face to face with two stormtroopers inside the head of the AT-AT. So what's going on with the back transport during this time? The back car moves through the AT-ATs and looks like it might actually escape through a large door, but then suddenly, wham, the door closes and the transport is whisked backwards. This car also sees a Finn animatronic, but he'll be sitting behind some crates this time, avoiding fire from the blasters. When your transport vehicle rises up, you'll be looking at the side of the AT-AT and see an open side panel on the body with stormtroopers rushing around inside. The final difference happens both times that the riders encounter Kylo Ren. In both Kylo scenes, on the bridge and where the ship gets hit behind him near the end, the front car is to Kylo's left while the back car is to his right. The way the experience differs here is that Kylo turns different directions when addressing the riders. The front car is more compelling in this case because Kylo will directly address that front transport versus the back one, which again is kind of passive in this scene. Don't get me wrong, this ride is remarkable no matter which transport you're sitting in, but it definitely feels like that front transport can have the upper hand with some of those key ride scenes. Meanwhile, over on Millennium Falcon, Smuggler's Run, even though your mission stays the same each time you visit, gotta collect that coaxium, you're not always gonna have the same role on this ride. You've actually got three potential roles you could be placed in: pilot, gunner, or engineer. Pilot tends to be the most coveted of the three positions since it not only puts you in the front row of the ride, but also gives you the chance to actually drive that hunk of junk in real life. That being said, being the pilot can also be one of the most stressful positions too. Remember, the ride is more like a video game, so how you steer actually impacts not just the way the story goes, but impacts how everyone else in your ride vehicle experiences the story too. So you can either be a really good pilot and smoothly fly your team toward victory, or you can be a really, inexperienced pilot who's still gonna fly your team towards victory, but in a way that makes everyone feel like a shaken ragdoll by the end of it. If you're traveling with a bigger group, it's not a bad idea to discuss who wants that position before you get up to the ride itself to help minimize hurt feelings and racked nerves. I'm not even kidding. And then there's Star Tours, which actually randomizes your ride scenes each and every time. So while the Star Tours Star Speeder in front of you might be encountering Darth Vader and taking down massive AT-ATs on the planet Hoth, the Star Speeder you're on might be coming face to face with Kylo Ren and outrunning TIE fighters on Jakku. Or maybe you're experiencing something else completely different. After all, there are hundreds of possible ride-throughs you might encounter. And to put it bluntly, you might not enjoy them all, especially if you were crossing your fingers hoping to see Grogu and Mando, but they didn't show up. And Hollywood Studios isn't the only park that has rides where your experience might be completely different each time you hop on. I remember the first time I rode Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind. I got the song Everybody Wants to Rule the World, which is my favorite song, and so I loved it. Well, besides the fact that I felt like I was going to throw up. Other than that, I loved it. Now, Bria's first ride on Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind was with Conga, which we know we've got some Conga fans out there, but she felt like it slowed down the ride for her, so she wasn't as huge a fan of it initially, until she re-rode later on and got September, and then she was hooked. Regardless, while it's awesome that these rides have tons of re-rideability to make them feel new and fresh each time you board, if you've waited a long time in line to ride them, or if you spend a good chunk of money on lightning lanes to bypass the waits, having a ride-through that you're less than pleased with can feel like a big letdown. In some cases, you might be able to have a bit more control over your ride-through by requesting a certain row with the cast member at the front of the attraction. And while the cast members won't always be able to fulfill your request, they often can, so it never hurts to ask. This is how I've been able to consistently get on the very front or very back row of Cosmic Rewind time and again, as well as get on that top row B1 of Soarin' Around the World. But in other cases, you're just going to have to set your expectations, especially on rides like Cosmic Rewind and Star Tours where the song and ride scenes are always randomized. Well, unless you went to Epcot on September 21st this year when Cosmic Rewind played the song September all day long, that's a good time. Now for Star Tours, you can always get back in line and try again if you weren't too thrilled with your storyline the first time, since the lines for this attraction aren't that long anyways. But in the case of Cosmic Rewind, which currently still uses a virtual queue system, you're more than likely only going to experience this one once, unless you decide to come back to Epcot on another one of your park hopping days, or you attend an after-hours event for this park in 2025. So just be aware that you might get any of the ride's 6 songs, and it's still going to be a good time no matter what, even if you don't wind up with the song you were crossing your fingers for. But I'm going to be honest, Everybody Wants to Rule the World is the best. Are you someone who's watching today's video, but in the back of your head you're going, I don't care what rides people hate, I'm going to try to ride them all, regardless, during my next Disney World trip? It's okay, you can say it. You're not alone, I'm sure. If that is you, or if you're just interested to see how the DFB team manages to knock out as many rides as we do during our Disney World vacations, then make sure you scan the QR code you see on the screen now, or head to disneyfoodblog.com/DisneyRides so you can download our free Ride Everything at Disney World guide, which will help you, as the title says, ride everything. Now, there's gonna come a time in your life when you step off a roller coaster that used to be a whole lot of fun and you're like, I think my neck's stuck at a 45-degree angle now. I know, it makes you feel old, but sometimes it's also about the age of the coaster rather than your own upward climb. Or a nice healthy combo of both. Now, while Disney does work to keep their coasters running smoothly, a lot of them have really started to show their age, like Space Mountain, Big Thunder, and Rock 'n' Roller Coaster. So that wildest ride in the wilderness might turn out to be the wildest ride towards the nearest chiropractor. However, that ride has been proven to shake out kidney stones. So if that's a problem for you, definitely get in line. But listen, as much as these rides roughhouse you now, I still love them, and you might still love them too. So if you don't want to skip out on these coasters, but you want to help soften the blow and the potential back and neck strain, try sitting toward the front of the coaster rather than the back. The back of the coaster always gets the brunt of the acceleration after the first half of the ride vehicle goes speeding down the track, causing the ride to feel faster, but also a lot bumpier. While some folks love that extra intensity, some of us can definitely live without it, which is why you might want to try requesting a front row seat with a ride cast member before you board. Keep in mind that if a cast member is able to fulfill your request, you'll more than likely have to wait a little bit longer until the row you want is freed up. That's usually the case for the back row, though. A lot of people like to sit in the back. Now, even with a front row ride, you might still find yourself with a few Expedition Everest-sized knots in your back when all is said and done, especially if your back is prone to knotting like a pretzel anyways. So make sure to have some menthol-based products stowed away in your park bag, like that Roll-On Icy Hot or those like Advil and Aleve creams that I keep talking about. Those are so fun. They feel so weird. Anyway, I love to use those, especially after a long park day. You know what I love? A ride with a queue line that's actually enjoyable to stand in. Like Peter Pan's Flight in Magic Kingdom, which has that fun, interactive nursery where you can watch Tinkerbell flying about and where you can play with your own shadow projected on the wall. Or Dumbo the Flying Elephant in Magic Kingdom, which has an entire playground area for the kids to burn off steam while hanging out under the big top and in the AC as they wait for their turn to ride. Or Under the Sea Journey of the Little Mermaid in Magic Kingdom. Not only does that line move pretty quickly, but you get to stand in a nice cool grotto and play a game with Scuttle while you wait. Or if you just so happen to be in this queue on Mickey and Minnie's birthday, November 18th, you're going to get the chance to see the rarest hidden Mickey and Minnie of them all, the one that forms from a sun projection across the grotto's rock walls at exactly noon o'clock. Now that's one cool queue if you ask me. But then there are the rides where waiting in the queue can start to feel like a miserable chore, and even though you like the ride itself, the wait might not be worth the payoff. I'm sure y'all have your own beef with certain Disney World ride queues, but here are just a few of the ones the DFB team and I personally find ourselves dreading. First, Astro Orbiter in Magic Kingdom. It's basically standing in line for an elevator, and not the fun Tower of Terror kind of elevator, but the standard kind of elevator that you'll find in like a parking structure. Not only that, but this ride has a small capacity, so it takes a long time to actually board. This means an often lengthy wait, even if the wait time claims to be shortish. If you want to check this one out, I'd recommend getting in line for it towards the end of the night. That way, it's not as hot, the line is shorter, and you'll get some pretty spectacular nighttime views across the park. Navi River Journey in Animal Kingdom also has a long outside line, which moves faster than Astro Orbiter, but is definitely busier than Astro Orbiter throughout the year. Once you get through that overflow line, the queue winds guests through the wild nature of Moara Valley, and yeah, the plant life and waterfalls and floating mountain pictures are neat, but after about 3 minutes of the same scenery, you're going to be ready for some AC. Stat. You'll briefly get a reprieve from the sun by entering a native nomad's hut, but again, it is not air conditioned, so the earlier on in the day you can knock this one out, the better off you'll be. It might even be a good one to get in line for during your early theme park entry benefit, which is available for all Disney Hotel guests and allows you to enter any of the parks on any day 30 minutes before everybody else. But when I think about it, I think my least favorite queue across all of Disney World has got to go to Slinky Dog Dash in Hollywood Studios, which is a shame because this coaster is great, but the wait is anything but. The overflow line of Slinky Dog is all outside in the hot sun with very little shade. Now, once you get through the overflow line and into the actual queue itself, you'll get to see a few fun themed sections, but it's still pretty sparse and very, very sweltering, even with the limited fans trying to help you out overhead. This is a great ride to snag a multi-pass lightning lane for ahead of your trip if you plan on using this premium line bypassing service during your visit. But if you don't want to use this service, then you might want to plan on jumping in line for Slinky at the very beginning or the very end of the day when the sun isn't being a bully and the wait times are more reasonable. While there are numerous ways to potentially help you cut down on your ride wait times, like using lightning lanes, getting in line during early theme park entry or extended evening hours, jumping in the queue before the parks close, riding the attractions during the park's big shows, etc., there will more than likely come a time during your visit where a lengthy wait is inevitable, if there's a certain ride you don't want to miss out on. However, there are ways to pre-game the line to make the waiting game a little more bearable. First and foremost, make sure your phone is at least at half battery or that you have a phone charger handy. You can use your phone to kill lots of time, much like I do during the day anyways when I get stuck in a TikTok doom scroll. And this is also prime time to set yourself up for success for other parts of your park day via your My Disney Experience app, like setting up your mobile orders, searching for any last-minute dining reservations, checking show schedule times, looking at who's meeting and greeting and when they're meeting and greeting, or even admiring your PhotoPass pictures. Okay, that last part's not actually productive, but it can still be fun. Also, go ahead and grab a snack and or drink before your long wait, either from your own bag stash or from a location inside the park. Disney's cool with you having a little treat while you wait. My go-to for some reason is grabbing those roasted almonds from the cart next to Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway and munching on them while looping around the Grauman's Chinese Theater queue. I don't know why it's a thing for me, but I've done that same thing 3 times now, so I guess it's tradition. And don't forget to fill up your water bottles before you get in line too, especially if you're getting in one of those queues that'll keep you out in the elements for an extended amount of time. Oh, and reapply that sunscreen. And finally, make sure everyone in your party uses the bathroom. Waiting in a hot queue for Slinky is bad, but waiting in a hot queue while also doing the tinkle dance is worse. So Disney World rides aren't like the jeans from Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants where one size fits the whole friend group. Some rides people will love, while others will come out feeling just awkward about the whole experience. This is the introvert in me talking, by the way, but a handful of Disney rides can make you feel uncomfortable just because you're going to be very, very close to other people the entire time. It's just how they're built. Think Pirates of the Caribbean, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, even Soarin' if you don't want to accidentally hold hands with a stranger while you reach for the railing of your seat or buckle your seatbelt. Now, these rides often crush you up against other folks, which can feel a bit suffocating when you just want to focus on the ride itself instead of focusing on another person popping your personal bubble. If you're with other members of your group, then that awkwardness might not be nearly as bad because at least you know the people you're going to be squished against. But as a single rider or even as a party of 2, this might be a frequent experience that you got to brace yourself for. There are also the rides that are awkward to get on and off, especially if you're not as limber as you used to be. If you've ever been on Space Mountain, you already know what I'm talking about here because you're sitting so low in that vehicle and your little rocket ship is already pretty teeny weeny to begin with. So getting out of that rocket is always going to be awkward, like getting out of a water tube from the lazy river, except you're on dry land. If this helps you out any, there's no graceful way to get out of these ride vehicles, so take some comfort in the fact that no one's going to look cool getting off Space Mountain. By the way, nobody's watching you get off Space Mountain, so don't worry about it. Now, how about getting onto an Omnimover ride, like a Doom Buggy at Haunted Mansion or a Clammobile at the Seas with Nemo and Friends? Those can also be pretty awkward thanks to the moving walkway and just like the pressure. First, you have to step onto the moving walkway, and then you have to navigate that moving walkway and get into a ride vehicle. Now, fortunately, the moving walkways are pretty slow going, but that still doesn't make us any less nervous about tripping over our own 2 feet. But Disney's prepared for this possibility, or the possibility that it might take some folks just a little bit longer to board their buggies and clammobiles, so if need be, a cast member will slow the moving walkway down or stop it entirely to help you out if you need the extra assistance. And then there are the rides that don't fit certain body types, like the motorcycle-style ride systems for Tron Light Cycle Run and Flight of Passage, or over-the-shoulder restraint rides like Rock and Roller Coaster and Mission Space. Several rides will have test seats outside the queue's entrance that you can try out before getting in line to see if they'll work for your body type. The good news for Tron is that even if the motorcycle-style seating doesn't work for you, there are alternative ride vehicles that sit upright just like a regular roller coaster that you can request instead. You can even request them if you just don't like the motorcycle seating. But if you ever have a question about any ride before you board, especially if that ride has a really long line that you don't want to wait in if you're not going to be able to board it in the first place, please don't hesitate to ask a cast member at the front of the attraction about your concerns. They might be able to tell you which rides have seatbelt extenders or alternative seating types or even other tester seats that might not be as visible to the public. Even if they can't answer some of your specific questions, they can always reach out to one of their supervisors to help you out further. The good news is that many of Disney's rides are very accommodating, but if you don't want to get in line for them because you're still nervous about it not accommodating you, remember that your mental health is more important than trying to fit on a ride. It's more than okay to talk with your group ahead of time and choose which rides you'd rather skip and instead go to a show or have some extra shopping time or a few extra PhotoPass picture ops instead. If you or someone in your group has mobility concerns, there are several rides that have different entrances for wheelchairs that your party can use. Few examples for you. Over at Kali River Rapids in Animal Kingdom, there's a specific gate for those who need some extra time to board the raft. You'll also need to transfer from your wheelchair and into the raft itself, but this gate will lead you down a short ramp and over to a pull-off area to help you get into the boat with less of a time constraint. At Toy Story Mania in Hollywood Studios, there's a separate accessible loading area where you won't have to do any transferring since this ride has specific vehicles designed to accommodate wheelchairs. And the same thing goes for Remy's Ratatouille Adventure in Epcot. If you come up to an attraction in your ECV or wheelchair, just know cast members are usually super aware of what you'll need to do before you get in line. Ask them and they'll be able to give you the scoop on if the ride you're wanting to board can accommodate a wheelchair or if you'll need to transfer from your wheelchair to a ride vehicle at some point inside the queue. Disney also has a super helpful page on their website that'll answer a lot of those extra ECV and wheelchair questions for you as well. We'll go ahead and link it down in the description below if you want to check it out after this. What about the rides that are over too fast? Don't blink, because if you do, the ride you waited so long for might already be over. Some of Disney's longest ride lines are for attractions that aren't even 3 minutes long. And while those rides are still fun, after waiting in line for 45 to 60 plus minutes, you might find yourself going, that's it? That's what I've been waiting for all this time? I find Magic Kingdom to be the most guilty of this phenomenon since it's got popular rides like Peter Pan's Flight, which is 2 minutes, Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, it's 3 minutes, Space Mountain, 2.5 minutes, and Tron Light Cycle Run, which is just over a minute, very short. Each of these rides has the potential of racking up over an hour wait during its day, despite the ride length being about as brief as Dory's short-term memory. So if you want to ride them, but you don't want to wait forever and a day to ride them, Lightning Lanes can be your best friends. It's also worth noting that after-hours events and holiday parties can also help you avoid those really long waits for really short rides, since those separately ticketed events are capped off at a limited number of guests when available. And don't forget what I talked about earlier. Lines for these types of attractions tend to be shorter at the very beginning of the day or at the very end of the night, especially during Happily Ever After. So while this is usually the time where I'd call out Barf Alley over in Epcot, what with its dual spinny and screen-based rides right next to each other, I also want to call out, well, to be real with ya, every single Disney World ride in all 4 parks. Whoa there, AJ, settle down now. Not every Disney World ride has the potential to make you sick, right? Hate to break it to you, but Disney World is one giant petri dish. So the kid with the runny nose is going to be touching the lap bar, and the parent with the tickle in their throat might accidentally sneeze on the shoulder restraint, and Aunt Susan, who threw up this morning but blamed it on bad chicken at the restaurant from the night before and insists that she's fine, is going to be touching everything. Right after the COVID closures, ride cleaning procedures were a whole lot more frequent, but nowadays they're not nearly as so. So it's up to you to keep yourself and your family safe and as germ-free as possible while still having a fun-filled day inside a theme park with thousands of other guests. Because it really, really, really stinks, literally and figuratively, to get norovirus in a hotel room. So here's what you need to do to protect yourself from Aunt Susan and everybody else. First, do not, I repeat, do not eat anything after getting off a ride until you've had the chance to stop inside a bathroom and scrub down your hands. And don't just do it for a second or two. Sing the whole happy birthday song and really get your nails with those suds. Second, pack those germ fighter backers. Germ shields, germ preventions. Nah, we'll go with fighter backers. Your park bag needs to be equipped with hand sanitizer, wet wipes, immunity boosters like those over-the-counter elderberry gummies or emergency tablets or whatever you like. And for those who get queasy from the spinny and screen-based rides, having other over-the-counter aids on hand like Dramamine or Tylenol or C-band wristbands, ginger chews, whatever, that can be vital to have with you. Finally, get to sleep. Your body's going to be more susceptible to picking up germs when you're running on fumes. So after a full park day, make sure to get plenty of rest before waking up and doing the back-to-back rides all over again. Listen, I'm just telling you this because I go to Disney World a lot. My team goes to Disney World a lot. And I've talked to a bunch of people who've gone to Disney World who basically are like, my whole family got sick after we went. It happens all the time because your body's being exposed to germs it's not usually exposed to, and because you are running on fumes. You're not eating good, healthy food. You're not getting the sleep you need to get. You're not drinking the water you need. So, of course, your body is going to be a little bit weaker than it would normally be when it comes to fighting off germs. So, if you don't want to basically have to go back to work and school after your vacation and be super, super sick the whole time, just follow these little rules. Wash your hands, use that hand sanitizer, stuff like that. Next, here's the situation. You've got one day in Magic Kingdom, just one, and you're not going to be going back to Magic Kingdom for a really long time. So getting in the virtual queue for Tiana's Bayou Adventure isn't just a must-do, it's a have-to-do, because this is going to be your one chance to ride it till you get to go again in like 15 years. No pressure. Now, it's not joining the virtual queue that's the problem. The act of joining it is pretty easy. You just open your My Disney Experience app, and as long as your vacation information and party info is up to date, you should be able to press the Join Virtual Queue button on the home screen at 7 a.m. or 1 p.m. Like I said, that's not the hard part. The hard part is joining the queue before it fills up. And it tends to fill up in seconds. So you could be pressing that Join Virtual Queue button right at 7 a.m. and still be greeted with a sorry, queue's full message. Talk about stressful. This is also the same case for Cosmic Rewind currently over in Epcot, and will more than likely be a similar case for new rides introduced to the Disney scene in the future. Because in order to handle a new ride's crowd levels, Disney now only opens up a virtual queue for them and keeps the standby queue option closed until the park feels comfortable enough to open it up, like they recently did for Tron Light Cycle Run in Magic Kingdom. So how then can you improve your chances of getting on these virtual queue-laden rides when it feels like the odds are against you and the pressure is on? First, pre-select your party before the queue goes live. Even though the first virtual queue drop happens at 7 a.m., you can complete a vital first step of joining the queue anytime after 6 a.m., the step where you confirm your group. That way, when the clock strikes 7, all you have to do is worry about pressing that button to join the queue and nothing else. Second, check on your Wi-Fi signal. A slow Wi-Fi signal can make or break you here. If the place you're at doesn't have strong signal, which is very common, you might want to ditch the Wi-Fi altogether and rely on your phone's service to get the job done. Third, remember that 1 p.m. rule. Fortunately, if you miss the 7 a.m. drop, you'll have one more chance to grab virtual queues at 1 p.m. But here's the catch. You must be in the park where the ride resides in order to be eligible for that 1 p.m. drop. So if you're hanging out in, say, Hollywood Studios when 1 p.m. rolls around, you won't be able to snag virtual queues for Tiana's or Cosmic Rewind. But if you're in Epcot during that time, you can try to get into Cosmic Rewind's virtual queue, but still not Tiana's. Fourth, when in doubt, lightning lane it out. One surefire way to help you get on those virtual queue attractions options is to skip the virtual queue completely and pre-purchase some lightning lanes. Cosmic Rewind's lightning lane can be purchased as a single pass, which means you'll only be able to pay to skip the line once for that ride and that ride alone. But Tiana's lightning lane is part of the multi-pass, meaning you have the opportunity to select Tiana's option as well as several other lightning lane options throughout the course of your park day. By the way, if you want to get Tiana, I recommend that you go ahead and book those initial multi-pass lightning lanes as soon as you can. That's either 3 days for folks not staying on Disney property and 7 days in advance for those who are. Fifth, try the third hidden virtual queue drop. 7 a.m. and 1 p.m. are the only virtual queue drops available unless you're going to a park's extended evening hours. So extended evening hours are available for deluxe resort guests only and allow you to stay in select parks on certain nights up to 2 hours after everyone else has to leave. So if the stars align and you're able to take part in extended evening hours for Epcot or Magic Kingdom, the virtual queues for Cosmic Rewind and Tiana's will once again open for you right at 6 p.m. Extended evening hours are listed on Disney World's park hours and events calendar via their website, so make sure to check that out before you go. And finally, join the party. Again, the after-hours events and holiday parties can be extremely useful because of their limited capacity. And because the parks aren't nearly as busy during these events, the virtual queues disappear during them, meaning you can get in a standby queue for Tiana's or Cosmic Rewind and ride these attractions not just once, but as many times as you can fit into a single party night. Now, last but not least, these rides can be unreliable. One thing about our DFB reporters is that they are on it when it comes to Disney World ride breakdowns. As in, we've got a pretty consistent tally to see which rides have given us the most oopsie-daisy moments throughout the course of the month. Just last week, one of our reporters was stuck on 2 rides in Magic Kingdom on the same day and actually got evacuated from both. She was evacuated from Pirates of the Caribbean and then went and tried to ride Tiana's and was evacuated from Tiana's as well. That's a special kind of luck right there. So just this past September, here's where we're standing. Over in Magic Kingdom, Seven Dwarfs Mine Train closed 51 times over the course of 24 days, which isn't super shocking because it's such a highly sought after ride with relatively low capacity. Then over in Hollywood Studios, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway closed 30 times over 20 days, which isn't too bad considering it's a trackless dark ride with lots of moving parts. But it was kind of strange to see that this ride surpassed Rise of the Resistance, which is usually on top of our leaderboard when it comes to ride closures. So perhaps it's finally starting to get its kinks worked out. Maybe. In Animal Kingdom, Triceratops Spin, bless its heart, closed 33 times over 22 days, and while I think that was well weather related since it's an outdoor ride, wouldn't shock me if this ride is also starting to show some wear and tear, not receiving much TLC from Disney's end. After all, it's on the up and out with the whole Tropical America's re-theme on the horizon, which will eventually replace Triceratops Spin, as well as the rest of the Dinoland USA area. Now, here's something that's puzzling to me. Even with those high-tech rides like Cosmic Rewind and Frozen Ever After and Remy's Ratatouille Adventure in Epcot, none of those attractions had nearly as many closures as Grand Fiesta Tour starring the 3 Caballeros during the month of September, because Grand Fiesta closed 39 times over the course of 21 days. Now, they've been having real trouble with their sound system, so maybe that's why. Now, this is bizarre. There's not a lot of demand for this attraction. It's a pretty straightforward boat ride, and it's all indoors, so probably it's that sound system, and it just needs some routine maintenance. But as bizarre as all the Grand Fiesta breakdowns were throughout September, it just goes to show you that Disney World rides are unpredictable. So when you might have the perfect game plan for your park day already typed up and ready to go, a technical difficulty or extended refurb closure, even bad weather might force you to change things on the fly. But I'm not here to gaslight. It's a huge bummer when a ride goes down, and you might even start to develop a grudge against a ride you've never been on, just because it won't stop closing on you before you get the chance to ride it. But what I've liked to do recently is treat a ride breakdown like a breakup. Ride's down, fine, then I'm just gonna go treat myself to a little Disney snack or a small Disney pin to trade or fun little show that's about to happen or one of those several hundred things that are still open and available in the park, because I'm a strong, independent person and I won't allow one ride to ruin my entire day. Not to mention, if your My Disney Experience app is telling you that the ride that's down is currently unavailable, then there's a good chance it'll go back online for you to experience it later in the day. Keep checking on the app for when the ride goes back online, but even when it does, I'd recommend heading to the rides surrounding it first rather than to the freshly opened attraction. Many folks are going to rush on over as soon as it reopens, which can sometimes mean that other lines for attractions nearby can drop significantly. So use that temporary ride closure and switch it from being a huge burden to the ultimate park hack. All right, y'all, time for a palate cleanser. If you've been to Disney World before, let us know in the comments what your all-time favorite ride experience has been. And if you're getting ready for your first ever visit, let us know what extra questions you have about Disney World's rides. Because we love talking about them. Don't be shy. Ask away. And don't forget to pick up our free Ride Everything at Disney World guide right now over at disneyfoodblog.com/DisneyRides. Thanks for listening, everyone, and thanks for watching. As always, this is AJ for Disney Food Blog, and we'll see you real soon.